Hello and welcome to Access, Governance, and Action, exploring the future of analytics in the Data Cloud. My name is Ross Perez, and I'm the Senior Director of International Product Marketing here at Snowflake. Before we begin, I wanted to level set on data. Now, I know all of you are already up to speed on this, but data is an incredibly important resource. And we're seeing that many organizations are thinking of data not only as a tool that can be used and put and formed into reports, but also something that can drive competitiveness within the business. They're also seeing that it can be something that can improve relationships with partners, and something that can drive additional revenue from customers, and something that can be used to improve the relationship with organizations outside of your own. Data can be used not simply as a tool, but also as something that can create revenue on its own for some organizations. So really, the scope of how we can use data has expanded significantly from the days of simply using it in reports, and has become something that's completely integral to the way that businesses are doing business. Now, unfortunately, the importance of data has not coincided with an ease of being able to access and use it. Now, we're very lucky to have two clouds already, the application clouds and the infrastructure cloud. For instance, in the application cloud, you have products such as Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Workday. In the infrastructure cloud, we look at products and services such as AWS and Azure and GCP. Now, organizations are storing a massive amount of data in both of these clouds, and it has the tendency to create data silos. Now, data silos don't sound too bad on their own. Of course, having data in Salesforce is a fantastic thing. But what if you wanted to combine that data with other data that's not sitting in Salesforce? Well, it can be something that will require you to export data or use it in a different way. These data silos are true certainly across the different clouds, the application cloud and the infrastructure cloud, but it's also true within organizations. You can have data silos while using the same single technology as well. Many companies will have databases for different purposes or different organizations that are separate and inaccessible to people outside of their operational division. The truth is that data silos are one of the biggest problems for organizations to actually try to go and create value. We see across many of the people that we work with that they'll have data silos for sales, for finance, for different suppliers that they have, for enterprise applications, and being able to have these data silos talk to each other is incredibly difficult. Let me talk about a data silo that you may understand in real life. Now, forgive me, I'm a marketer, so I'll use a marketing example. But let's say that you want to understand how the effect of an email might be in real life. If you go and send an email campaign and you want to see if that actually resulted in people either signing up for your product or service or actually resulted in revenue at the end of the day. Well, often you'll have data about that specific email and all of the emails that you send in a application service such as Marketo. Now, you may also have clickstream data and all of the information about how people are actually interacting with your website once they click through on the email in the infrastructure cloud, perhaps in a S3 data lake. Now, being able to combine these two incredibly valuable data sources would result in increased knowledge and certainly more value than the sum of either of these data sources separate from one another. But being able to combine them in real life is incredibly difficult. And these are how data silos come to affect the way that we're able to actually realize the value of data in real life. This is where the data cloud comes in. And at Snowflake, we're very passionate about this idea of being able to combine all of the data an organization may have in one single centralized location on the cloud of your choice or across multiple clouds. You can combine data from the application cloud and from the infrastructure cloud and separate data that you load into the data cloud itself, all in one location and accessible to everyone in your organization. It's an incredibly powerful promise, and it's something that also enables the idea of a global network. So once you have all of your data in one location, it'd be fantastic to be able to actually combine and share that data with people outside of your organization. Of course, you need to do so securely, but this would enable the type of interactions I was describing before, where you can very directly interact with suppliers, with partners, with customers, and being able to really understand how your relationships with the external organizations are working and improve your relationships with those people as well. So what would we need in order to realize this promise of the data cloud? Well, of course, we'd have to have all of your data in a centralized location like I was talking about before, and being able to very quickly access that data from any location, and perhaps be able to enable access for that data outside of your organization as well. The second piece is governance. Now, having all of this capability to access data is not going to be very powerful if you're not able to make sure that it's done securely. And the last thing is action. So action is an interesting verb, but I think it's incredibly important here because having all of this data and all of these capabilities in the data cloud is one thing, but really what you need to be able to institute within your organization is a culture of using data to actually go and do things and actually foster the types of insights that can lead you to improving your business, lowering costs, expanding product lines, and that kind of thing. So action is something that the data cloud would really need to be able to enable. Let's talk about each of these ideas in a little bit further detail. Well, the first one is access. Now, organizations have data of many different formats, so access would need to enable you to have access to JSON data, to unstructured data and log files, and be able to get insight from that. Of course, near unlimited scale is incredibly important. Having access to data isn't very useful if you aren't able to do so performantly. And this doesn't just mean fast, it also means being able to do so across a wide range of people. So enabling everybody to have access to data is really a key component of making this data cloud idea successful. And of course, sharing data. So I talked about being able to communicate with partners with data and being able to communicate with customers with data and being able to share that data and live access to that data without having to copy or move it is an incredibly important piece of what would make the data cloud successful. The second piece is governance. Being able to share all of this data and create these types of interactions with customers and partners is useful, but if you're unable to do so in a secure way, then you're not going to get very far. So of course, this involves multiple different components. Of course, being able to know your data is an incredibly important piece of governance. In other words, being able to see the provenance of the data, understand what's in the trends in the data, and also to verify that the data that you're collecting is accurate, and it spans the entire scope of what you're trying to collect. Of course, you need to be able to unify security and governance. So being able to look across your entire organization and govern it in one location is so important. One problem with data silos is it makes it very difficult to know exactly where data is and who's accessing it. But if you have your data in one centralized location, like the data cloud, well, unifying security and governance is significantly easier. And the last piece is control. So this means being able to control at the row, at the column, being able to mask data. Controlling your data is a big piece of governance, of course. And then action. So this is the fun part, if you will, where you're actually taking the ability to access data and to do so securely, and then spreading that information and insight from data across not just your organization, but also those people and organizations that you work with closely outside of your team. Action can look like data scientists that are running new models. It can look like product teams that are building new products. It can look like analytics teams that are able to access and action on new insights and spread those insights throughout the rest of the team. So action is really an important piece of this, and I think probably the most exciting. Now, I'm sure many of you have already caught on to this, but Snowflake is the data cloud, and it can enable you to create this access and governance and action within your own organization. Let's take a double click and look at Snowflake and how it can support you in this way. Now, Snowflake is built upon a cloud repository, so that's the basis of the product. You can put all of your data into one centralized location on the cloud or multiple clouds of your choice. So you can use Snowflake on top of AWS, on top of Azure, and on top of GCP, either singularly or all at the same time. Now, into this repository, you can connect Snowflake to a variety of different data sources, whether it's OLTP databases, enterprise applications, web and log data, IoT data sources. You can bring all of that into this centralized location in the cloud. Now, once you have your data in the cloud, you can action on top of your data by enabling a multitude of different workloads, including data engineering, data lake, data warehouse, data science, data applications, and data sharing. And at the end of the day, this means that your data consumers can enable an enormous amount of different capabilities, everything from reporting on data to ad hoc analysis and data science, and actually monetizing your data through Snowflake's data marketplace, which I'll get to in a moment. Let's take a look at how Snowflake's data cloud can help to support access. Now, a big piece of access is performance, and there's three interesting ways that Snowflake has changed the way that organizations are looking at the performance of an analytics application. The first one is through workload isolation. So Snowflake has taken the approach of being able to separate storage of data from the compute of data. And what this means is that from the single centralized repository of data that you have on the cloud of your choice or the clouds of your choice, you can run multiple different clusters of compute at any given time that can all access this centralized data store. This means that you can empower your analytics team to access data all at the same time. It means that you can run reports across the entire organization on Monday morning and not interfere with the loading of data into Snowflake. It's an incredibly powerful tool, workload isolation, and it's also one of the capabilities that can enable Snowflake to help you share data. In other words, by enabling different Snowflake accounts outside of your own to have restricted and governed access to your data, they can spin up their own clusters of compute and be able to access your data. I'll double click on that in just a second. The second piece is simplicity. So Snowflake is delivered as a service, which means that we take care of the maintenance and upgrades and performance tuning so that you don't have to. And the last piece is automation. So everything that you're doing within Snowflake can be automated, whether it's the ingestion of data, the creation of different tables and tools for being able to analyze your data so that your team can always be focused on getting insight and performing action on type of data rather than keeping the service running, as it were. Now, the second thing that we'll need for the data cloud, and it's incredibly important, is governance. So let's take a look at how Snowflake can support data governance. Well, first of all, knowing your data is one of the biggest pieces of governance, and Snowflake can help with this in a number of different ways. Our Snowsight application within the Snowflake UI can enable you to see where data is coming from, understand trends, and dig deeper into exactly where your data is coming from. So knowing your data is a very important piece of this. The other piece that Snowflake can assist you in doing with knowing your data is being able to see in any given individual place where all of your how your data is changing over time. So this is a big piece that larger organizations are often concerned about is, are we continuing to get data from the right sources at the right volumes that we're expecting to get it from? And because you have the single centralized repository in the cloud with Snowflake, it enables you to do that in a way that you wouldn't be able to do with any other product. Now, controlling your data is also very important, and Snowflake can enable a multitude of different capabilities in this area. Of course, you have row-level and column-level security. Snowflake has also recently released data masking, so you can be able to take PII and obfuscate it in a way that can be safe for analytics, which is an incredibly powerful capability. So you can definitely control exactly how people have access to see, use, and analyze the data that you have in your organization. The other thing is that Snowflake's role-based access control can allow you to be very fine-tuned and granular with exactly who has access to what and the experience that an individual user might get when they're going through your data. The last piece, of course, is unifying security and governance. So having your data in one location is a big piece of this, but it's also having the ability to create different resources for each of the different organizations within your team, and then being able to unify them from one centralized location. So an example would be if you had a sales operations organization within Snowflake, and you had your marketing organization. They have different data sets that they may use, and at times they may coordinate with one another, but of course they have their own data permissions within their accounts. Well, with Snowflake, you can manage all of that from a global level while still being able to fine-tune and control it at a granular level within each of these organizations. Now, the third thing that we need for the data cloud is action. And of course, this is one of the most exciting components of what Snowflake can enable. Now, there are many components to action, but I do want to double click on data sharing and Snowflake's way of doing so. I talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to really dig into the details. Now, I already mentioned how Snowflake has separated compute and storage to enable you to be able to spin up multiple different compute clusters at any given time and separate workloads out so that people don't get in one another's way, and you can analyze data at the same time as you're loading it, as an example. Now, this extends beyond your own organization Snowflake instance to other organizations Snowflake instance as well. Now, instead of sending files to people that you want to share data with outside of your organization, what if you could simply enable them to securely access the data that was sitting in your Snowflake account with the compute in their Snowflake account? Well, that's exactly what data sharing is. And the benefits are myriad, of course. No moving and no copying, because they're simply gaining access to your data. You're not moving it and sending it to them. It also enables live data because they have access to the data that's being recorded and being stored within Snowflake at any given time. So when they run a query, it'll be up to date with whatever data is stored within Snowflake. Of course, you can share personalized and secure views. This wouldn't be any use to organizations if you weren't able to be very granular with exactly what data you're sharing outside of your organization and with who. You can also do so in a governed way, and you can revoke access at any given time. Now, this is a very powerful feature. If you can imagine sending a file to someone, once you've sent that file, you have no idea what they've done with that data, and they could have really have access to it at any given point in the future, and will have access to it at any given point in the future. By being able to revoke access, data sharing is an incredibly more secure way of sharing data. And of course, the important piece with the data cloud and what we're always thinking as we're creating this global network is that it's available globally and across clouds as well. So you can share data from your AWS version of Snowflake to someone who's running Snowflake in GCP. On top of data sharing, Snowflake has also enabled the Snowflake Data Marketplace. Very simply, this is a public marketplace where you can put your data up for others to view and browse. They can easily view your data, sample it, and then if you have a need to be able to monetize this data, then you can work out the relationship that you might have with any of your different customers and use the data marketplace as the conduit for the actual data to be transmitted. Now, in the background, of course, it's Snowflake data sharing that's making the data marketplace possible, but the incredible power that you can have in your organization here is being able to do this with a multitude of different customers at any given time, and to do so in an automated way. So when you continually are updating your data and making changes to it, it will be reflected in the data marketplace, and just really increase the speed and ease with which you can put your data either up for sale or up for consumption with different partners or customers that you may be working with. Let's talk about the data cloud in action and the marketplace in action, what that might actually look like. So the Covet Alliance is an incredible group that has actually worked together to try to understand the impact of COVID, but also to enable governments and different agencies to understand when they can be able to lessen restrictions on COVID in a safe way. Now, at the back of this is an incredible amount of data that's been stored by our partner Star Schema and made available on the Snowflake Data Marketplace. Now, any of these different agencies and participants in the Covet Alliance can be able to access that data at the same time, and of course share within one another the data that they are collecting on their own about the impact of COVID. So you have kind of two-way sharing that can be enabled and is being enabled with the Covet Alliance, which is an incredibly powerful thing. Now, double-clicking on an individual one of these agencies is the California.gov COVID-19 data, which is available on the Snowflake data marketplace as well, and has been integrated within the data that Starschema has recorded and made available. So incredible power that we're seeing kind of at work, the data cloud at work. So here we are, and the rise of the data cloud is certainly in front of us, and it is giving us incredible power to see what organizations can do, certainly similar to the Covet Alliance, when they do bring their data into one centralized location, when they're able to bring that information sitting in the application cloud in ServiceNow or Marketo, and also combine it with the data sitting in the infrastructure cloud in AWS, Azure, or GCP. It's an exciting time, certainly for what organizations are going to be able to do with their data, and not just power the reports and insights that their organization is relying on today, but also think about how they can use data as a competitive differentiator in the future, as something that can improve their relationships with customers and partners, that can help them to expand to new revenue and product lines, and certainly be able to be more efficient and safe and controlled with the way that they're utilizing data. If you're curious about utilizing the data cloud yourself, go to snowflake.com and you can start a free trial of our product.